Hey there, my name is Jacob, but I also go by Nerdy Edits. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl were released not too long ago now, and I'm surprised at how much I like them. Like many people, I felt like these games were going to be too similar to the originals to be enjoyable, but I'm happy to admit that I was wrong. And while these certainly aren't my favorite remakes, and I still would prefer to play Platinum at the end of the day, the quality of life changes added to the remakes make these games prime for challenge runs, which, in case you can't tell from my other content, is what I'm all about. So for my first playthrough of Brilliant Diamond, I decided to do a Hardcore Nuzlocke. If you're unfamiliar, a Nuzlocke is a set of self-imposed rules that turn a normal playthrough of Pokemon into a permadeath hellscape, and the hardcore part adds a few more rules to make the game even harder. The rules for my playthrough were, only one Pokemon is obtainable per area. If a Pokemon faints, it's considered dead and must be either permanently boxed or released. Nickname all Pokemon. No items in battle, but held items are okay. Battle style is on set, meaning I can't switch out automatically after beating a trainer's Pokemon. Level cap is equal to the next gym leader's strongest Pokemon. So for example, at the beginning of the game, the level cap is level 14, which matches Rourke's Cranidos of the same level. And for the Elite Four and Champion, the level cap is equal to the final Elite Four member's strongest Pokemon. So in the case of Brilliant Diamond, it's level 63. And finally, I play with a dupes and species clause, which means if I catch a Pokemon, then later on if I encounter that same Pokemon on another route, or a Pokemon of its evolution line, I can pass up that Pokemon and get my next unique encounter. Before we get officially started, I have to acknowledge one new feature of these remakes, the Grand Underground. The Underground returns from the original Diamond and Pearl, but this time is littered with areas called Pokemon Hideaways. There are 17 unique hideaways that all have wild Pokemon walking around the overworld. Each one of these hideaways have their own location names and encounter tables, so I decided to count each one as its own encounter. I understand if you feel differently about this, but this is how I wanted to play the game. And finally, if you're interested in Pokemon Challenge content, or Challenge Run content in general, be sure to like the video, subscribe, and follow me on Twitch to watch my challenges live. With that out of the way, let's get into the run. As soon as I spawned in, I met up with my rival Dingus and made my way to Lake Verity. Despite my warnings, Dingus dragged me into the tall grass and we were attacked by a flock of rabid starly. Thankfully, Professor Rowan's incompetent assistant Dawn left behind a briefcase with 3 Pokeballs inside containing the Sinnoh starter Pokemon. Now, I've played the Sinnoh games dozens of times at this point, and almost every time I choose Turtwig or Chimchar. But this time, I wanted a different experience, so I decided to pick Piplup. I named him Pablo, and then Pablo smacked around the wild starly until it left me alone. After telling Rowan I'm not giving him Pablo back, I took his Pokedex and some Pokeballs and got my first encounter on Route 201. I caught a starly and named him Winston. Then, on Route 202, I encountered a Shinx. But at the beginning of the battle, the Intimidate ability didn't activate, meaning this Shinx has Rivalry, which doubles its attack stat in a battle against a same gender Pokemon, but halves its attack stat when facing a Pokemon of the opposite gender. And to boot, this Shinx is a female, and a majority of the Pokemon in major trainer battles tend to be males, so I decided it wasn't worth catching. In Jubilife City, I grabbed the Old Rod and backtracked to Twinleaf Town and fished up a Magikarp. Getting a Magikarp early on is highly recommended for people Nuzlocking this game. Gyarados is super strong, is guaranteed to have the Intimidate ability, and gets a host of strong physical moves that can be amplified with Dragon Dance. Unfortunately, Fungus here has a modest nature, which lowers his physical attack and raises his special attack. Literally the worst nature he could have. So Fungus is a bench warmer for now. Then, on Route 204, I caught a Budew and named her Rosé. I know I'm listing off a ton of encounters right now, but don't worry. Throughout the rest of this video, I'll only be talking about encounters that are important to the run. After stomping my rival, I moved on towards Oreburgh City and caught Olivia the Geodude in Oreburgh Gate and Rudy the Onyx in Oreburgh Mine. With a full team assembled, I entered the gym and took on Rourke. I started the fight with Pablo, fully intending to just spam Water Gun until I won. This worked against Rourke's first 2 Pokemon, but Cranidos ruined my momentum by taking out half of Pablo's HP and flinching me with Headbutt. This means that if Cranidos crits with Headbutt, Pablo's dead. So I switched in Olivia and spammed Rollout until Cranidos went down. Upon returning to Jubilife, I found some retirement home workers committing elder abuse on Professor Rowan, so Dawn and I kicked their ass, causing Winston to evolve into Staravia. Shortly after, Pablo beat up some little girl's pet squirrel and evolved into Primpla. With my team looking strong, we decided to swing by the Value Inn Works, only to find out that it's been taken over by Team Galactic. Inside, I took on the first Galactic commander, Mars. Her Zubat was easy enough to take out, but her Purugly is known for being quite troublesome. Winston's new intimidating look lowered Purugly's attack, and then he stole Purugly's Oran Berry with Pluck. But Purugly retaliated by stealing Pablo's Quick Claw and using it to get off priority Scratch. Thankfully, Pablo took it like a champ and KO'd Purugly with Water Gun. And before leaving the Value Inn Works, I caught a Shellos named Goopy. My journey then took me north to the Eterna Forest. I met up with Cheryl and agreed to carry her and her stupid egg thing through the forest. Also, I caught Cream the Baneri and added her to the team. And thank God she had the superior ability Runaway instead of Klutz. This actually comes in big later in the run, but I'll get to that. Next up is Eterna City, and it's here where we get the Explorer Kit. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I counted each individual kind of Pokemon hideaway as a separate encounter. I caught a handful of Pokemon, but the only notable ones right now are Hex the Murkrow from the Spacious Cave and Carmen the Krogunk from the Swampy Cave. But then, I had the great misfortune of encountering a Lickitung in the Riverbank Cave. This devious little turd managed to kill both Carmen and Olivia by spamming Wrap and Rollout. The especially annoying part was that I didn't even end up catching the damn thing. I had to run away out of fear that Rollout was going to wipe my entire team. Sorry ladies, Olivia kicked some butt against Rourke, and Carmen hadn't even gotten a chance to do anything yet. But you will both be missed. After taking the appropriate amount of time to grieve, I ran over to Route 211 and caught Onion the Metatite, then headed into the Eterna Gym. The gym trainers gave me no issues, and I managed to reach Gardenia just under the level cap for this section. Just like her gym trainers, Gardenia posed no threat against me. I sent out Winston and spammed Double Team in order to wait out Turtwig's Reflect, then went all in with my Flying type moves and easily blew Gardenia's Grass types away. And with that, I was done with my first day of the playthrough. After I ended the stream, I realized I now had 2 Pokemon on my team that evolved by friendship. And just like the original games, every 250-ish steps you take has a chance to increase all of your Pokemon's friendship level. So the morning of the next day, before I started streaming, I ran around for over an hour and managed to accumulate 40,000 steps, which maxed out my entire team's friendship. What I didn't realize, however, is that the affection bonuses that were added into Generation 6 carried over into this game. If you don't remember, starting with Sword and Shield, the affection and friendship stats were merged together, meaning the more your Pokemon likes you, the more likely they'll shake off status afflictions, hold on from a potential KO with 1 HP, get a crit in an effort to be pleased, or even avoid moves that have 100% accuracy. This feels a little cheap for this kind of challenge, but unfortunately there's really no consistent way to avoid raising your team's friendship level. Shortly into day 2, Rosé evolved into Roselia and Cream evolved into Lopunny. I then caught Truffle the Cleffa from Mount Coronet and entered the Galactic Eterna building. While past me scales the building, there's something troublesome I need to acknowledge, the level cap for this section. Just like the original Diamond and Pearl, even though we reach Hearthome City before Veilstone and Pastoria, we have to skip Fantina's gym and get the first 4 badges before coming back to battle her. And while most people would take on Maylene, then crash her wake before heading back to her, you can actually reach Pastoria City before beating Maylene. So, the developers decided to give both gym leaders Ace Pokemon a level of 30. This means that even after beating one of the gym leaders, I have to adhere to the same level cap until I beat the other. In the normal Diamond and Pearl, this wouldn't really be an issue, but in BDSP, my entire team gets experience from every battle, which makes it harder to avoid leveling them up. So the closer I got to Veilstone City, I began to split up the main team and add some B team members from the box in order to make sure none of my useful Pokemon go over level 30. Back in the Galactic building, I took on Commander Jupiter, and this is when I realized how tricky the boss battles would be for the rest of the game. Before doing this run, I looked at the gym leaders' teams in order to look at the level caps for each section, without looking at specific movesets or items. I just assumed all the teams would be the exact same as the original, until Jupiter's Skuntank used Flamethrower, which it definitely didn't used to have. I then began looking through the specific sets of the major battles for the rest of the run, and I realized Ilka wasn't messing around. While the Pokemon were essentially all the same, most major battles after the second gym were given good IVs, EVs, movesets, natures, and items. This made me really excited, but also kind of nervous considering I now have to start strategizing before every boss battle for the rest of the game. Anyways, Pablo beats Skuntank and I moved on towards Hearthome. Not much happened on the way to Hearthome, except for meeting a really angry looking troll doll cosplaying as an astronaut. In the city proper, I entered Amity Square and got the ability to have my Pokemon follow me in the overworld, which, not gonna lie, feels kind of weird in Generation 8. In Heart Gold and Soul Silver, all Pokemon followed right behind you constantly, but in Let's Go, Sword and Shield, and BDSP, different Pokemon have different walking speeds and some will constantly be falling behind. I know this is super nitpicky, but it kind of defeats the purpose of having follower Pokemon if you can't see them half the time. After thrashing Dingus once again, I headed over to Route 209 where I managed to encounter a 5% Chansey in the tall grass. I also managed to catch her and named her Egg Mama. Shortly after reaching Solaceon Town, I decided to go underground again in an attempt to catch a Houndoom. Houndoom is one of my favorite fire types to use in Sinnoh, but unfortunately in BDSP, it's only available in certain underground areas as a rare spawn. I didn't end up finding a Houndoom, but in the Dazzling Cave, I found something even better. I wound up finding an Elekid, which is also a rare spawn. Not only was I super excited to find Elekid because I've never used one before, but upon catching it, I realized he had the egg move Fire Punch, a naive nature, which is perfect for mixed attackers, and it had a near perfect attack IV. I named the little guy Paul, but since he was already super close to the level cap, I put him in the box for now and decided to add him to the team when I started prepping for Crasher Wake. Back on the surface of Sinnoh, I made my way through Route 215, catching Eugene the Abra in the process. This was also the point where I put a majority of my main team in the box so they didn't overlevel, and kept Onion and Cream in the lineup to help train up some B team members. Also, shortly before catching Eugene, Truffle evolved into Clefairy. Most of the trainer battles on this route were nothing, but this route has a notorious double battle at the end that is known for being a Nuzlocke killer. Thankfully, you are able to challenge each trainer individually if you talk to them rather than walk in front of them, so I thought I was in the clear. And, well, I'll let me from the past take it from here. Taunt, Oh, this is not good. What the hell?! I just lose. I just straight up lose. So yeah, this is a great way to learn that Gyarados learns Waterfall at level 21 in this game. And in the rain, there was no way any member of my team could take a hit from this beast. I then began to panic because half of my team at this point were weaker Mon that I was just starting to train, and none of them had anything that would be good against Gyarados. I really thought this was the end, but thankfully I had something on my side that I didn't even realize that I had. Sex appeal. Remember before when I mentioned that Cream had the ability Runaway when I caught her? Well, if a Baneri has that ability and evolves into Lopunny, then they get the Cute Charm ability. This means that anytime an opponent of the opposite gender hits them with a physical move, there is a small chance they will become infatuated, which means that they may be unable to move. And thankfully, Cream is a female and this Gyarados is a male. After lowering its attack with baby doll eyes, Cream was hit with a weak Ice Fang and managed to infatuate Gyarados. And to my benefit, this Gyarados was really horny and only hit once or twice before being taken out with a flurry of cuts from Cream. I avoided a massacre, but we still lost Onion in the process. Rest in peace, Onion. Once in Veilstone, I decided to fill the onion-shaped hole in my heart by doing some shopping at the Veilstone department store, and I was extremely happy to find that the TMs for Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, Flamethrower, and Dazzling Gleam were available for purchase since the Game Corner has been banned from Pokemon games since Generation 5. I then assembled my team for Maylene, which included Pablo, Winston, Truffle, Eugene, who evolved into Kadabra on Route 215, and Miss Norris the Machop, who I forgot to mention I caught back on Route 207. While taking on Maylene's gym trainers, Miss Norris evolved into Machoke. Right off the bat in the fight against Maylene, I knew I had to take down Meditite in one hit because it has both Light Screen and is holding the Light Clay, which extends the number of turns Light Screen stays up. Thankfully, Winston managed to one-shot Meditite with Aerial Ace. I then switched into Truffle, who took a knockoff from Machoke, losing her Pixie Plate in the process, but thankfully she still KO'd Machoke with 2 Dazzling Gleams. Finally, her Lucario came out, and this thing is pretty damn strong. It has Stab, Metal Claw, and Drain Punch, and the latter gets an additional boost because Lucario was holding the Big Root, which boosts the power of moves that drain the opponent's health. I brought out Winston to get an Intimidate drop, but Drain Punch still did more than half. I then brought out Rudy because I knew she could take a Drain Punch and would bait Metal Claw. I then switched into Miss Norris, who got knocked down to low HP from Drain Punch. Miss Norris then hit with a Fist Plate boosted Vital Throw, which left Lucario with a tiny amount of HP. I figured Maylene would heal, then I would hit with Low Sweep to lower Lucario's speed enough to go first on the next turn. But unfortunately, she must have seen the kill and just decided to go with Drain Punch, which killed Miss Norris. This game just really doesn't want me to have a good fighting type. Thankfully, Lucario was already -1 speed from Rudy's Bulldoze, and Winston was able to outspeed and KO with Aerial Ace, earning me the 3rd badge. After burying Mrs. Norris and boxing Truffle and Rudy because they went over the level cap, I added Paul, Rosé, and Cream to the team and made my way to Pastoria. While doing some training before the gym fight, I got Paul at a level 30 and evolved him into Electabuzz. I then taught Paul both Thunderbolt and Thunder via the TMs I bought from the department store. While Thunder has low accuracy, Wake's Quagsire has Rain Dance, which makes Thunder always hit no matter what, so I decided to give it to Paul just in case. Thankfully, I didn't need it, because after nuking Gyarados with Thunderbolt, Quagsire tried to hit Paul with Mud Bomb, but being the god gamer that I am, I switched into Rosé and one-shot Quagsire with Giga Drain. I then switched into Pablo, who resists Floatzel's stab moves, and plucked off his Citrus Berry. Rosé then came back in, narrowly avoided a Nice Fang, and KO'd Wake's Ace with Giga Drain. After the gym, the mother of all mommies, Cynthia, tasked me with delivering a necklace to her grandmother. While fighting the trainers on the way, Pablo and Winston evolved into Empoleon and Staraptor. Fantina came next, and she was a total pushover. While her team looked scary on the outside, their movesets left a lot to be desired. Her ace, Mismagius, for some reason has Phantom Force instead of Shadow Ball, which would have made it significantly more scary considering Mismagius' special attack is double that of its physical attack. Thanks to this, I was able to wall her team completely and take them out with relative ease. After Fantina, I realized I could access new areas in the underground if I entered from Celestic Town. In the Icy Cave, I caught a Bronzor named Nickel and put him in the box for now. I then went to Iron Island to prepare for Byron's gym and met up with Riley in the lower levels of the cave. Everything was going smoothly, but while in a double battle, tragedy struck. So, if I really want an Electivire for the end game, oh, please don't attack me. Please don't. No! Eugene, my boy! Ah, damn it! After Eugene went down, I decided to add Nickel to the team. Bronzor and Bronzong are super cool Pokemon if you know how to use them, and the one I caught thankfully had a -speed nature, which made Stab Gyro Ball even more powerful. Also, I added Nickel to the team from the inside of the cave with the use of the box feature from the party menu, which led to this weird glitch. Oh, just on Iron Island. Damn. Oh well. Wait, where's Riley? What the hell? Well, Riley just straight up disappeared. That was weird. Pablo, you rest in the box for now. There it goes again! Okay, hold on. Riley was behind me, but when I go into the box, he disappears. And he's not even there in the cutscene. What the hell? What the f is wrong with this game? This was only a few days after the game's release, so I hadn't yet realized that this was only scratching the surface when it comes to glitches in these games. When I reached the end of the cave, I picked up a shiny stone which I used to evolve Rosé into Roserade, and shortly before taking on Byron, Nickel evolved into Bronzong. In Byron's battle, I easily took out Bronzor with Pablo's Surf, but Bronzor managed to get off a Trick Room which allows the slower opponent to go first for a few turns. When Steelix came out, I was scared that Thunderfang or Earthquake would take out Pablo, so I switched into Cream and began setting up with Worko. Thankfully, Steelix fell for Cream's Womanly Charm and was taken out with a few low sweeps. Cream also managed to take out Bastiodon with a couple of low sweeps due to Bastiodon having the Sturdy ability. Before heading to the library to meet up with Dingus and the others, I backtracked to the hidden entrance of Wayward Cave that was now accessible with Strength. I caught Gibby the Gibble and picked up the TM for Earthquake at the end of the cave. After the meeting at the Canalave Library, I headed to the lakes Valor and Verity to take on Saturn and Mars. Neither gave me much trouble, and I headed north to Snowpoint City. I then did one of my favorite exploits in this remake and took on Candace. Slide forward here. Paul's Fire Punch one-shot Snover, Winston's Close Combat one-shot Sneasel, and Winston also one-shot Medicham with Aerial Ace. Then her Abomasnow came out. I switched in Pablo to tank a Blizzard and do massive damage with Flash Cannon, but sadly, Pablo was frozen by the first Blizzard. I swapped into Nickel, and even though they both had Gyro Ball and Heavy Slam, they did absolutely nothing to Abomasnow. And despite their massive defenses, they eventually went down to Abomasnow's Giga Drain. Rest in peace, you tanky bastard. As sad as Nickel's death was, it allowed me to get a clean switch into Paul, who destroyed Abomasnow with Fire Punch. Next up is a gauntlet of Team Galactic battles starting at the Veilstone Galactic HQ and leading all the way to the peak of Mount Coronet. The only major battles in this batch were the first Cyrus fight, the second Saturn fight, the double battle against Mars and Jupiter, and the final Cyrus fight. The first 3 battles from this list weren't any trouble, but the second Cyrus fight gave me some issues. Cyrus's Honchkrow went down to 2 Ice Beams from Pablo, and then Gyarados came out. I knew this thing would go for an Earthquake, so I pivoted into Winston to avoid it and got an Intimidate drop. I then used Pluck to steal the Gyarados' Wakan Berry, which weakens super effective electric type attacks. Paul then came out, took an Ice Fang, and KO'd with Thunderbolt. Then, Weavile came out. This thing has one of the weirdest sets I've ever seen in a Pokemon game. For some reason, it has no stab moves. This thing has Metal Claw, Fling, Dig, and Aerial Ace. It also has the Chople Berry, which weakens the power of super effective fighting type moves, and an ability I've never heard of before, Pickpocket. Pickpocket automatically steals the opponent's held item if the user isn't holding one. With this set, I figured this thing could do nothing to my team, but I think even with the Chople Berry, that's a one-shot. Oh, okay. It took my Sky Plate, and it's gonna use Aerial Ace on me. Oh, full restore. Okay, now a crit. Oh. What? No, not Winston. Yeah. Despite this being the 7th death overall, this was the first one that really stung. Winston was the first Pokemon I caught all the way back on Route 201, and he got me through so many battles, and for him to die in such a convoluted way really sucked. And I definitely wasn't the only one who felt this way. Pablo came in and raged at the death of his friend, and demolished Cyrus' final 2 Pokemon with Flash Cannon and Ice Beam. Before I could bury Winston, I was thrust into a battle with Dialga, which I immediately ran away from. Now, I have to prepare for the Volkner Gym battle, and thankfully I had Gibby sitting in my party through the entire Galactic Gauntlet, holding the Lucky Egg, and shortly after beating Cyrus, he evolved into Gabite. I then began the grind to get him to evolve into a magnificent Garchomp that would sweep through Volkner's team. Everything was looking up, until Gibby died during grinding. It was at this point that I decided to find an alternative method of level grinding, and in layman's terms, I cheated. See, most people who create Nuzlocke content all agree that spawning in rare candies and items that normally take a long time to obtain, like the daily berries from the Berry Master, or the items from the underground, is okay because it cuts out a buttload of grinding. And thankfully, I have a modded Switch and was able to add in all the items I needed to make grinding a breeze for the rest of the game. This included the EV resetting berries, the vitamin bottles that raise your EVs, super effective weakening berries, and of course, rare candies to actually level up my Pokemon. Also, I went ahead and evolved Paul into Electivire, since the only way to get an Electorizer in this game is to find a rare spawn Elekid in the underground and hope you get the 5% chance of it holding the Electorizer. I also leveled up and evolved Hex the Murkrow into Honchkrow, Goopy the Shellos into Gastrodon, and the ultimate benchwarmer, Fungus the Magikarp into Gyarados. Finally, I adjusted my entire team's effort values to max out their best stats since the major battles for the rest of the run have nearly perfect competitive sets. And after all the preparations were taken care of, it was time to face Volkner. Despite Volkner's Raichu holding a Shucca Berry, which weakens super effective ground type moves, Goopy managed to take it out in one shot with a crit Earth Power. I then sent out Paul against his Ambipom and was blown away at the fact that Technician boosted Fake Out brought Paul to half HP. Fearing for Paul's life, I brought in Fungus to get an Intimidate drop, and then took a double hit. Thankfully, I thought ahead and gave Fungus the Wakan Berry so that he could tank a Thunderbolt, and then he set up with Dragon Dance. Unfortunately, Waterfall left Ambipom on 1 HP. This thing didn't have a Focus Sash or anything. It actually survived on 1 HP. So Ambipom used Thunderbolt again, but Fungus managed to hang on with 1 HP because he was afraid of being a disappointment. Volkner then healed Ambipom to full HP, but Fungus took it out with 2 more Waterfalls. Octillery came out next, and I figured it would go for Charge Beam because it was the only super effective move it could use on Fungus. Banking on that, I switched into Paul. I ended up being right, and Paul absorbed the hit with his Motor Drive ability. A single Thunder Punch then one-shot Octillery. Goopy came back out, took 2 crunches, and one-shot Luxray with Earth Power. And with that, I had all the Sinnoh Gym badges. So now begins the endgame prep. My team at this point was looking pretty good, but I decided to box Goopy in place of Egg Mama since I already had 2 water types on the team. After getting her EVs and moves in order, Egg Mama evolved into Blissey. Finally, I made sure my whole team had the most optimal movesets and held items. After beating Dingus one last time, I got them all to the level cap of 63. Heading into the Elite Four, I have to admit that I was pretty nervous. This easily has to be one of the toughest Elite Fours in the entire Pokemon franchise. I took a deep breath and passed the point of no return. First up is Aaron, the Bugmaster. He started with Dustox and I started with Egg Mama. I started by setting up a Substitute, only to discover that sound-based moves like Bug Buzz pass through Substitute and do direct damage. Thankfully, Egg Mama has monstrous HP and special defense, and I have the leftovers equipped, so Dustox was doing very little damage to me. Still, Flamethrower wasn't doing a lot of damage back, so I switched into Hex when I knew Aaron would heal and took it out with a Wing Attack. Next up is Heracross. I figured being 9 levels higher and being fully invested in speed would let me outspeed, but Heracross went first and hit with a devastating Rock Slide. Thankfully, Hex barely survived and knocked out Heracross with a single Wing Attack. Beautifly came out and I went back into Egg Mama to tank any special attacks that would come my way. But instead, it went for Quiver Dance, which made me really nervous. Thankfully, Egg Mama put my worries at ease by one-shotting Beautifly with a critical hit Flamethrower. The remaining 2 members of his team went down pretty quickly. Vespiquen went down to a few Ice Beams from Pablo, and Drapion went down to a single Earthquake from Fungus. Bertha is next, and even though she's the easiest Elite Four member to take down, she still required some strategy. Most of her team is easy to one-shot, but her Golem could prove problematic. With the Sturdy ability, Golem is guaranteed to survive from Rosé's Giga Drain with 1 HP, and if it hits with Earthquake, that could potentially kill a member of my team. So before starting the Elite Four run, I taught Rosé's Toxic Spikes in order to break Golem Sturdy. After setting up with Toxic Spikes, Rosé tanked an Earthquake and one-shot Quagsire, Whiscash, and Sudowoodo with 1 Giga Drain each. Golem came out and was poisoned from Toxic Spikes, then I swapped into Fungus to avoid Earthquake. On the next turn, Fungus managed to avoid Stone Edge and knocked out Golem with Waterfall. Her final Pokemon Hippowdon then went down to a Dragon Dance boosted Waterfall. Flint is third and his Rapidash went down to a single Surf from Pablo. Fungus came out and tanked a -1 High Jump Kick from Lopunny. Next turn, Waterfall did about half and High Jump Kick missed, which did enough damage to take out Lopunny. Flint sent out a Steelix with Thunderfang, so I sent out Paul to take the hit since he's immune to electric type attacks. Then Fungus came back out for the Intimidate drop and did just over half with Waterfall. Unfortunately, Steelix was faster and on the next turn hit with a Life Orb boosted Thunderfang. Even though Fungus was holding the Wakan Berry, this is actually pretty bad. I had been planning to save my Wakan Berry for Infernape since it has Thunder Punch and the ability Iron Fist, which powers up punching moves. Oh well. Fungus took out Steelix with another Waterfall, and Drifloon came out. I sent out Paul, who avoided a Will-O-Wisp and hit hard with Thunderbolt, which almost one-shot and activated Drifloon's Citrus Berry. Next turn, Drifloon went for a pointless Minimize and was taken out with Thunderbolt. When Infernape came out, I started panicking. This thing is fast, hits like a truck, and can't be taken out in one hit due to it holding the Focus Sash. I knew that if I was going to win, I would need to cheese this fight. I sent out Fungus to get another Intimidate drop and to tank a weak close combat. Then I swapped in Rosé to take Thunder Punch, then back into Fungus to take a -2 Fire Punch, which left him with 20 HP. Paul came back in, and Infernape's Thunder Punch increased his speed. With a defense drop from close combat and confidence that Paul could take a hit now, considering Infernape is -2, I went for a Thunder Punch and knocked him down to his Focus Sash. Paul tanked a close combat and one-shot Infernape on the next turn after it was healed to full from a full restore. Thankfully, this went in my favor, because this could have easily been a wipe if I wasn't careful. Finally, I made it to the strongest Elite Four member, Lucian. Pablo did over half of Mr. Mime's HP with Flash Cannon, but then Mr. Mime got up a Light Screen. Thankfully, it still went down to another Flash Cannon. Next up is Medicham, and oh my god, this thing is terrifying. It has a Brave nature, which boosts the attack stat, is holding a Muscle Band, which increases the power of physical moves, and has the ability Pure Power, which doubles its physical attack stat. Needless to say, this thing had me terrified. Fungus came out to get an Intimidate drop and to tank a High Jump Kick, which despite being -1 and resisted, still knocked Fungus down to half HP. Paul came out to take a Thunder Punch, and Fungus went back out to get another Intimidate drop, and take another High Jump Kick. Fungus at this point only had 50 HP left, so I knew keeping him in was not an option. After doing some damage calcs, I discovered that Hex's Wing Attack, if it gets a high damage roll, can knock out Medicham. So I switched into Hex, only to realize after hitting the button that I should have gone into Paul first to avoid the super effective hit from Thunder Punch. Thankfully, Hex was holding a Wakan Berry and Medicham didn't get a crit, so Hex was fine. Then on the next turn, Hex hit a high roll and one-shot Medicham with a Wing Attack. Girafarig came out next, but was one-shot by Night Slash. Then his Alakazam came out. I knew this thing had Shockwave, so I decided to switch into Egg Mama to tank the hit, which increases in power every turn, while Alakazam started setting up nasty plots after using Future Sight. At first, I seemed to be doing fine, almost knocking out Alakazam after a few turns, but then Future Sight hit, Lucian healed Alakazam to full, and killed Egg Mama with a critical hit Psychic. And this is almost the exact moment where I realized that Sucker Punch from Hex would have taken out Alakazam in one hit. Whoops. Sorry, Egg Mama. Hex then came out and did what it should have done in the first place to knock out Alakazam. Lucian sent out his ace Bronzong, but it was no match for Hex, who hit with a nasty foul play that left Bronzong with a small amount of HP, and KO'd on the next turn with Sucker Punch. At last, I had made it to Cynthia. I was a single Pokemon down, but after surviving one of the toughest Elite Four runs of my life, I was feeling pretty confident. As always, Cynthia leads Spiritomb, and I led Rosé. Rosé takes 2 Sucker Punches and survives with 27 HP, and knocks out Spiritomb with 2 Dazzling Gleams. Milotic is second, but Rosé didn't have the health to survive an Ice Beam at this point, so I swapped into Pablo, and Milotic's Flame Orb activated and triggered its Marvel Scale ability, which raises its defense when burned, poisoned, or paralyzed. Grass Knot from Pablo did about half, and Pablo easily took a Scald. On the next turn, Grass Knot got Milotic's HP low enough to be KO'd from burn, but the damn thing used Recover. I went for another Grass Knot, but Cynthia decided to switch into Lucario. I switched into Fungus, who was hit with a weak Aura Sphere, and set up Dragon Dance while Lucario set up Nasty Plot. Next turn, Earthquake knocked out Lucario. Fourth is Gastrodon, who easily tanked Ice Fang and did some decent damage with Rock Tomb. I switched into Pablo, who was hit with Rock Tomb, and thankfully, even at -1, he outsped the next turn and hit with Grass Knot for really good damage. But then, rather than go for the Earthquake, which would have activated my Shucca Berry, Cynthia went for Rock Tomb. I thought that this was so that she could get as much damage off on Pablo as possible before hitting with Earthquake so that she could outspeed, but even at -2 speed, Pablo still outsped and KO'd the Gastrodon with his Shucca Berry intact. Fifth is Roserade, who hits Hex for almost half HP with Resisted Energy Ball. After some deliberations, I realized that I need a clean switch into Paul to take out Roserade with Fire Punch. So sadly, I let Hex go down and Paul came in and knocked out Roserade. Thank you for your sacrifice, Hex. Milotic came back out, and even though Paul could have easily taken it out, I decided to send in Fungus to start setting up Dragon Dances for Garchomp. Thankfully, he got a clean switch in due to Cynthia using Recover, but I wasn't out of the woods yet. I did the math and realized I needed to be +4 in order to one-shot Garchomp with Ice Fang because he has a Yachi Berry which weakens super effective ice moves. So I started setting up Dragon Dances, but Milotic's Ice Beams were just doing too much damage. At +2, Earthquake wasn't even doing half to Milotic, and her third Ice Beam knocked me down to low red HP. So I had to swap into Paul and knocked out Milotic with Thunderbolt. Finally, that monster of a Garchomp came out. This was the beginning of the end. I swapped into Fungus to get an Intimidate off and to avoid Earthquake. I went for Dragon Dance, hoping that Garchomp would use Swords Dance, but it went for Dragon Claw and killed Fungus. The rest of this fight was an absolute massacre. Pablo, Paul, and Rosé had nothing that could take out the Garchomp, and in only a handful of turns, they were all killed by Cynthia's final Pokemon. Which means that after coming this far and reaching the literal last Pokemon of the main story, the Hardcore Nuzlocke has ended in a failure. This was really disheartening. Overall, these remakes were pretty solid, and I was really excited to have my first full playthrough be a Hardcore Nuzlocke. So you can imagine my disappointment when I was an arm's length of victory, only to be kicked into the dirt. But don't worry, dear viewer, this is not where this journey ends. Over on Twitch, I'm currently working on another attempt at this Nuzlocke. I'm actually on my third attempt now because attempt 2 wiped to Maylene. But no matter how many attempts it takes, I will successfully complete this Nuzlocke, and I will make another video when I do. So if you want to see the video of my successful attempt, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to be notified about when I upload future videos. Also, follow me on Twitch, Twitter, and join my Discord server with the links in the description. Thank you for watching. I'm Nerdy Edits, and I'll see you guys next time.